You know, there's something about human nature that took me almost 50 years to really understand. And once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere. In grocery stores, in parking lots, in people's bank accounts, even in your own habits. Psychologists have a phrase for it. They call it instant gratification. Now, that's a fancy term, but the meaning is simple. The human brain loves rewards right now, right this second, not next year, not 10 years later, right now. Your brain is wired to chase the quick reward, the quick pleasure, the quick feeling that something good just happened. That little rush, that tiny spark of happiness. Scientists call that chemical dopamine. Every time you buy something exciting, every time you treat yourself, every time you feel like you got something, your brain releases dopamine. And for a moment, life feels good. But here's the quiet danger nobody talks about. That same wiring, the same instinct that helped our ancestors survive, can quietly keep people financially stuck for decades. Because money, real wealth, doesn't grow from quick rewards. It grows from delayed gratification. That's another psychology term. Delayed gratification simply means you're willing to wait. You're willing to sacrifice a small pleasure today so tomorrow becomes easier, stronger, safer. There was actually a famous psychology experiment about this many years ago. You might have heard of it, the marshmallow test. Researchers sat children in a room and placed one marshmallow in front of them. Then they told the child something interesting. You can eat this marshmallow right now, but if you wait 15 minutes, you'll get 2. Some kids ate it immediately, others waited. Years later, psychologists followed those children into adulthood, and something strange appeared. The kids who could wait, the ones who delayed gratification, tended to have better financial stability, better careers, better health, even stronger relationships. Because that one simple habit, waiting, changes how you make decisions. And when it comes to money, that habit matters more than almost anything else. Now, here's the part that always fascinated me. Most people don't lose financially because of huge mistakes. It's not usually one terrible decision. It's something psychologists call behavioral drift.
Small decisions, repeated over and over, slowly pushing life in a certain direction. And after watching people for decades, I started noticing something almost eerie. The same purchases, the same habits, the same patterns over and over again. You could walk into almost any Walmart, any Dollar General, or any convenience store in America, and if you just stand there quietly for 10 minutes, you'll start noticing it too. Same shopping carts, same items, same behavior repeating itself like a script. And the strange part is this: the people who can least afford to waste money are often the same people buying things that quietly drain their future. Now, I'm not talking about someone treating themselves. Everybody deserves a little enjoyment in life. I'm talking about a specific group of purchases. 7 things. 7 very common spending habits that create something economists call a poverty cycle. A pattern where money keeps slipping away no matter how hard someone works. And here's the part that frustrates me. Nobody explains this. Nobody sits people down and says, look, this thing feels normal, but it's quietly wrecking your financial future. So I'm just going to talk about it plainly, like an old guy sitting across from you at the kitchen table. No motivational speeches, no hype, just the truth I've watched for most of my life. Because the difference between someone who slowly builds wealth and someone who stays stuck usually isn't intelligence, it's thinking patterns. Psychologists have a name for the most dangerous one: present bias. Present bias means your brain naturally values today more than tomorrow. $5 today feels more important than $50 10 years from now, even though logically $50 is better. Your brain doesn't feel it that way. And that single psychological bias drives most financial mistakes. Now, the first thing I see destroying wealth again and again: brand new cars. Oh boy, this one alone has probably cost people more money than they realize. Someone finally lands their first decent job, maybe $40,000 a year, maybe $50,000. They finally feel like life is improving, and the first big move they make, they walk straight into a car dealership. Bright lights, clean floors, friendly salesmen, shiny cars sitting there like trophies. And suddenly, the brain lights up. Dopamine, excitement, status. Psychologists call this status signaling. Humans naturally want visible symbols that show progress. A new car becomes a signal, a way of saying, "I made it." But here's the brutal truth nobody explains. The moment you drive that new car off the lot, it instantly loses about 20% of its value. Not after a year, not after 5 years, the same day. That $35,000 car becomes a $28,000 car before you even make the first payment. $7,000 gone. And because the loss isn't visible, the brain ignores it. That's another psychology concept: loss blindness. When we don't physically see the loss, our mind pretends it didn't happen. But financially, it absolutely happened. Then the years pass. 5 years later, that same car might only be worth $15,000. But the loan, you're still paying it. And once interest is included, that $35,000 car actually cost you over $40,000. Meanwhile, someone thinking differently did something boring. They bought a 3-year-old car. Let someone else absorb the heavy depreciation. A 3-year-old Toyota Camry, maybe a Honda Accord. Reliable, comfortable, still plenty of life left. Originally $30,000. Now selling for $18,000. That person quietly saved $15,000 just by letting someone else take the hit. Now here's where something magical happens: time. If that $15,000 gets invested and grows around 10% annually over 30 years, that one decision quietly becomes over $260,000. Just from choosing patience. That's the power of compound growth. Money earning money, which then earns even more money. Like a snowball rolling downhill. Slow at first, then unstoppable. I drive a 2014 Cadillac myself. Bought it used. Runs perfectly fine. Comfortable ride. Gets me anywhere I need to go. And every time I start the engine, I'm not thinking about a $600 monthly payment draining my bank account. I'm thinking about what that $600 is doing somewhere else, quietly growing, multiplying, building my future. That's the difference. Now, the second thing I've watched drain money out of people's lives over and over again is lottery tickets. You ever stand behind someone in a line at a gas station while they're buying scratch-offs? You'll see it, that little spark of hope in their eyes, that moment where they imagine life suddenly changing. And listen, I understand that feeling more than you might think. When life feels heavy, when bills keep showing up, when you're tired of working and still feeling stuck, the brain looks for an escape. Psychologists call this escape fantasy. It's the mind's way of saying, maybe something magical will happen and everything will be different.
And the lottery sells exactly that, a fantasy, a $5 dream. But here's the quiet tragedy I've seen. Families making under $30,000 a year sometimes spend around 5% of their income on lottery tickets. 5%! That's around $120 a month. Now imagine something different for a second. Imagine that same $120 quietly invested every month. Nothing fancy, just a simple index fund, 10% average return, 30 years. That turns into around $270,000. So what the lottery really steals isn't just $5, it steals time. It steals the chance for money to grow. Economists call this opportunity cost. Every dollar spent on one thing silently removes the opportunity to use it somewhere else. An opportunity cost is one of the biggest invisible forces in financial life. You don't feel it, you don't see it, but it's always there. Now, the third trap I've seen, and this one honestly makes me angry sometimes, payday loans. Those little storefronts with bright signs that say things like fast cash today. Let me explain something about those places. They're not designed to help you. They're designed to keep you stuck. Here's how it works. You need $500. Maybe your car broke down. Maybe rent is due. So the payday lender gives you that $500 today, but you agree to pay back $575 in 2 weeks. $75 in fees. Now that might not sound horrible at first, but when you calculate that as an annual interest rate, it comes out to about 390% interest. 390%! That's not a loan, that's a trap. And here's where psychology kicks in again. When someone is under stress, their brain enters something called scarcity mindset. Scarcity mindset means when money is tight, the brain focuses only on the immediate problem. You're not thinking about next year. You're not thinking about long-term interest rates. You're thinking about right now. Right now, the rent is due. Right now, the car won't start. Right now, you need money. And in scarcity mode, the brain makes short-term survival decisions. But 2 weeks later, the paycheck arrives, and guess what? You still don't have extra money because you were already living paycheck to paycheck. So, the loan rolls over.
Another $75. Then another. Then another. Before long, someone has paid $300 in fees for a $500 loan they still owe. I've watched this cycle destroy people's finances for years, and it almost always starts with a small emergency. Which brings me to something simple most people ignore: an emergency fund. You don't need thousands of dollars to start. Even $25 a month matters, because the purpose of an emergency fund isn't luxury, it's protection. Protection from desperation, because desperation is when the worst financial decisions get made. Now, the fourth trap, this one is sneaky. Rent-to-own furniture and electronics. You've probably seen these stores. A big, comfortable couch, a giant television, and the sign says something like, only $69 a month. That monthly number feels small, feels manageable, feels harmless. And this is where another psychological trick comes in. It's called payment framing. Businesses know people focus on the monthly payment, not the total cost. So instead of saying, this couch costs $5,000, they say just $69 a month. Your brain hears the smaller number, and suddenly it feels affordable. But when you read the contract, that $69 runs for 6 years, 72 payments, which means you just paid almost $5,000 for a couch worth maybe $1,200, 4 times the price, all because the brain was tricked
by a monthly number. The rent-to-own industry makes billions using this exact psychological trick, targeting people who can't qualify for normal credit. But here's the thing many people forget. Used furniture exists. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, estate sales, thrift stores. You can furnish an entire apartment for a few $100s if you're patient. Will it look perfect? No, but you'll own it. No payments, no contracts, no financial chains attached to your couch. And sometimes owning something simple outright is more powerful than pretending to afford something expensive.
Now, the fifth trap I see constantly: extended warranties. You buy a laptop. The store employee says, "Would you like the protection plan for $200? You buy a phone. They offer insurance for $11 a month. It sounds responsible, but most people don't realize something. Most electronics either break early or they last for years. Manufacturers already cover the first year. Credit cards often extend that warranty another year, so that extra plan you're buying usually only covers one additional year. And statistically, most devices won't fail during that window. But here's why people buy it anyway. Psychologists call it loss aversion. Humans hate the idea of losing something, so we pay extra to avoid the possibility, even if the odds are small. But if you take that $11 a month and simply save it yourself, after 2 years, you already have over $250. If your phone breaks, you use the money. If it doesn't, you keep it. That's called self-insurance, and it's usually smarter for small items. Now, the sixth trap: entertainment overload. Cable packages, streaming services, premium channels. I've met people earning $35,000 a year, paying almost $200 a month for entertainment subscriptions. $200, that's $2,400 a year. Over 10 years, invested at 10%, that's more than $40,000. All for shows that will still exist next year. And this connects to something psychologists call dopamine loops. Streaming platforms are designed to keep your brain hooked. Next episode, next show, next recommendation. Because attention equals profit. But the brain slowly becomes dependent on constant stimulation, and money quietly drains away. Sometimes the smartest move is simple. Keep basic internet, use one streaming service, watch what you want, cancel it, switch later. Entertainment doesn't have to be permanent. Now, the seventh trap, and this one surprises people the most: fast food and convenience store spending. $5 here, $8 there, $12 for lunch. It feels small, but psychologists call this the latte effect. Tiny repeated purchases that accumulate into massive long-term costs. The average American spends around $3,600 a year eating out. Even half that amount, invested over decades, becomes tens of thousands of dollars. But the real reason people keep doing it is simple: convenience. Convenience triggers instant gratification again. You're tired, you're busy, you don't want to cook, so the brain chooses the easiest option. But every convenience has a hidden price. Gas station snacks cost 4 times more than grocery stores. Coffee shops charge $5 for something that costs 25 cents at home. And over time, those small choices shape financial reality. Now, when I step back and look at all 7 of these things, I notice they share one single psychological root: short-term thinking, immediate pleasure, immediate comfort, immediate relief. But wealth, quiet wealth, grows from the opposite habit: long-term thinking. Asking one simple question before spending money. Not, can I afford this today, but what is this costing my future?
Because that $5 coffee might not be $5. It might be $30,000 over 10 years. That new car might not cost $35,000. It might cost $260,000 in lost investment growth. Once you start seeing money that way, everything changes. Your relationship with spending changes. Your patience grows. Your future quietly gets stronger. And the funny thing is, the people who end up winning financially aren't always the smartest. They aren't always the highest earners either. They're just the ones who learn to control one simple thing: their impulses. Every dollar becomes a decision, and every decision quietly builds the life waiting for you 20 years down the road. So if there's one thing I'd suggest, just start with one habit. Pick one thing from this list, one, and stop buying it for a while. Take that money and save it or invest it, and watch what happens over time. Because financial freedom rarely comes from one big breakthrough. It comes from thousands of quiet decisions made patiently over decades. And those decisions start today. Now tell me something. Which one of these habits do you see most often around you? Or maybe in your own life?